Hey everybody, Gleekon here again in the next episode of Lore of Warcraft, as we are finally at the end of the second chapter of the lore of the first Chronicles. So we're kind of about halfway through, and what we are really ending is the prehistory, the prehistoric times before we actually have a number of years. And sort of like we have an AD and BC dating system, it seems like they've organized this lore from the time that the Dark Portal opened, or basically when orcs and humans kind of began, right around that time period. So we're going to finish our last chapter at the very end. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we know from various games have been established, but that we weren't covered in this book necessarily. All right, this one's called Children of Giants, The Rise of Humanity. With the winter's scorn asleep in their deep vaults and many of the earthen sealed within Uldaman, the remaining vrykul clans dominated the lands of northern Kalimdor. Over the course of eons, their disparate cultures flourished in unique ways. They developed their own identities and customs as they spread across the unforgiving north. One of the mightiest clans to arise was the Dragonflayer. Much like the Winterscorn, these vrykul found that their iron hides were gradually turning to flesh over time. Initially, the clan leaders sought to balance out their diminishing strength by enslaving the ancient proto-dragons, just as the Winterscorn had done in previous centuries. But unlike the Winterscorn, the Dragonflayers did not see the proto-dragons as mere beasts of war. They used the fearsome drakes as hunting companions, and they also rode them as battle mounts. Over time, these proto-dragons became an inseparable part of the clan's culture. They were also a necessary weapon against the Vrykul's mortal enemy, a fierce race of bear men called the Yalgar, the progenitors of modern-day furbolgs. Under King Imran, the Dragonflayer clan finally gained the upper hand against its foes. In a coordinated offensive, the vrykul attacked and drove the Yalgar into Kalimdor's lush central forests. Yet, on the heels of this victory, tragedy struck. The curse of flesh took another turn. Dragonflayer women began giving birth to small, malformed children, a development that has spread fear and superstition among the clan. Some of the vrykul even blamed Imran for the affliction, but the king had his own belief about who was responsible. In his mind, the mythical keepers were behind the curse of flesh. The keepers, whom many vrykul viewed as their godlike creators, had not been seen or heard from in generations. Imran convinced his people to renounce the silent and aloof keepers who had clearly abandoned them to the curse of flesh. He promised to unite all vrykul under his banner. As his first decree, Imran ordered his followers to cleanse the clan by destroying all of the malformed infants. Many of the Dragonflayers obeyed Imran's brutal orders. Some, however, could not bring themselves to murder innocent children. They sought to hide their stunted offspring in a place of legend, a land far to the south where a lost clan of vrykul was said to have journeyed with Tyr, Arcadis, and Ironaya. A number of Dragonflayers ventured south, taking their diminutive newborns in search of this fairy tale refuge. Most were never heard from again. But others did find their way. With heavy hearts, they left their beloved sons and daughters in the care of the vrykul who inhabited Tirisfal. In the ages that followed, the afflicted children and their offspring would continue degenerating into mortal beings called humans. Many of the other Titan-forged Mechanomes, Tol'vir, Mogu, and giants would suffer a similar fate. Very few of the Keeper's servants would fight off the affliction. Just as Yogg-Saron had hoped, the curse of flesh would weaken the Titan-forged, but it would also give rise to mortal qualities of necessity that the old god had never anticipated: courage, resolve, and heroism. Unaware that these potent traits would one day shape the fate of the world, Yogg-Saron and the other old gods focused on escaping their prisons. Freedom, however, would take thousands of years to attain. For now, more immediate dangers stirred in the lush heart of Kalimdor. A new power, a savage native race born in the early ages of the world, was on the rise. They called themselves trolls, and it would not be long before they learned of the malignant entities imprisoned beneath the earth. We have a little side one, the Dragonflayers and the Long Slumber. The Dragonflayers struggled to purge themselves of the curse of flesh in many ways. Despite all of their efforts, they would remain addled and weakened by the affliction. Eventually, these vrykul would place themselves in hibernation in the hopes of staving off the curse of flesh. All right, so first off here, we have King Imran and his push to fight against the Bearmen, the Yalgard. That's cool. I'd like to see them in action. But they become the Furbolgs. So we have another one of our races, in this case, another one of the evil, or, well, Furbolgs aren't all evil. But one of the other more sometimes evil races, but there's some neutral ones, as there are a lot of them. There are actually a lot of decent Furbolgs. So I do think that's cool. We have this bear race that becomes Furbolg. The rest of this story is all entirely covered in Wrath of the Lich King expansion, so we'll cover it on the Let's Plays in much greater detail than is actually given here. That entire story of Imran and the Dragonflayers and the birthing of the babies and then going into their long slumber, all of that is covered in the Lore Master of the first couple regions of Wrath of the Lich King. So we'll cover that much later. So we don't really have that much new, although we do have this tantalizing hint about what's going to come next. One, we're going to have history, but like dated history where we know how far away we are from the present. But two, we have the rise of the trolls, and apparently they're going to play a very central role. I think that is pretty cool. So I did say and mention that there are some things that we haven't talked about. Oh yeah, we also have the Mechanomes. Obviously, they're going to become gnomes. The Tolvir, we know they stay the same. They're the cat people, the Mogu. They're going to become evil. And giants, I don't know if they are going to branch off, because again, we don't know how Tauren, where they're going to come from, where the dwarves are probably coming from some of the earthen. Obviously, the humans are coming from the vrykul. But yeah, we don't really know where the elves are coming from. I believe they're going to come from the trolls and some of these other races. So we still have, we could recap that really. So now we have kind of dwarves, we have gnomes, we have humans, we have the Draenei, where they come from. We don't have elves yet. We don't have Worgen yet. And then I guess the Pandaren, we haven't really talked about where they come from yet either, because I believe there's around 7 races for each. I might be missing one right there. I feel like, well, there's the Lightforged Draenei and the Kultirans and the Dark Iron Dwarves, and I'm just basically trying to remember all those expansion ones. Those are all basically spin-offs. But from the Horde side, we don't really have the discussion of orcs yet at all. We don't have the Tauren. We don't have goblins. We're about to discuss trolls. We don't have the Forsaken. And we don't have Blood Elves because we don't have regular elves. So the Horde is really not a part of this at all yet. All right. So if you go to the timeline, you can look this up on a wiki. They talk about and break down a lot of these things too. And really, they've just summarized the Chronicles books. But in the mythos here, we have the origins of the universe we've discussed. We've discussed the rise of the demons from the twisting nether. In Shadowlands expansion, they have also said sometime in this prehistory, the jailer, which lived in the Shadowlands, was banished to the Maw by all the other eternal ones, and the Arbiter was created to watch over Oribos. We also have realized that in the Shadowlands, Sire Denathrius pretends to exile the Nathrezim, the evil, sort of old ones, I don't know, these puppet masters from Revendreth, pretending. So way back there, we know they're pulling the strings on a lot of things. We do know about Sargeras and betrayal and creation of the Burning Legion. The coming of the old gods, actually, that happens earlier. That's near the beginning. The wrath of the Titan forged, so all of that actually happens before some of these other things. And life being seated on Earth by the Keepers. This is not exactly the same order. And the dragon aspects being created here in prehistory. So we've covered everything else. We are going to now go back to, there's a couple other ones. 150,000 years, the contents of the Mosh Ark bounty quest, using carbon dating, believed to be of old god origin. That's actually a quest. I want to say, where is that? Let's look that up. It is a quest that is found in Stranglethorn Vale. Okay, so when we do our Let's Play on some of the either the old classic type quests, they'll joke around and talk about that. 25,000 years approximately before the Burning Crusade opened, the Eridar race arrives on the world of Argus. We actually covered that as well. So sometime, probably in Legion, they've given a date to that because we didn't do it just now in Chronicles. All right, and this is about where we're going to pick up, about 16,000, 15,000. We actually know this is happening right here too. The Curse of Flesh is affecting them. It affects the Mogu. All of these things are what we're going to cover in Chapter 3 in the book. All right, so a pretty neat end to our stuff, and a good way to end our second chapter, kind of get to our midpoint of the book, and I look forward to playing through a lot of these things. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. I really enjoy doing this, and I'm learning just as much, if not more, than probably a lot of you guys listening. All right, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next episode.